We're recording.
Well, good morning again on a Monday morning. Monday mornings with Masterwall with Brian and Grant. I am Brian.
I am Grant.
We are here to bring you education, entertainment, and engagement in Stucco history. Today, we have special guests with us from manufacturing.com. We've got Greg Wright, Brad Summerall, Jeff Muir, and Ryan Whiting. Welcome to the show, guys. This is a great episode for sure. We're glad you guys are here. We're going to talk all about the behind the scenes, the guts, the glory of Masterwall. So welcome. I'll start off and just say, one of the things that as an outside rep for Masterwall, how much I appreciate, and I hope that your teams that are back there hear this because it is vital. They are a vital, critical part of the team at Masterwall getting things done. We don't talk about them. We talk to you guys, but we don't talk to those that are back there supporting you. And I appreciate it. So I want to thank you and all of those that are there at the facilities, manufacturing the material, making sure the quality control is done well. And with that, I'll start off, Greg, with you to just say, how do you give us a picture of what that quality control process and procedures are, like the technical side of what you guys are doing?
All right. Well, as you know, we have a number of certifications that we meet in order to keep our codes approved. So we have a quality manual that applies to each of the manufacturing locations. It governs the entire process from acquisition of raw materials, testing, putting things together in the production process, additional testing after that, and tracking the paperwork all the way through from the time the order comes in until it ships out. So each plant has to comply with that. We're audited by outside quality consultants at each location every year. Matter of fact, we just within the last few weeks have finished up our audits in Texas and Utah. So we have somebody else that comes in and keeps score to make sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do.
That's pretty wild. Just to think about, how it's not just for us, again, on the rep side, the architectural side of ASTM requirements and third-party testings that get done for the systems themselves that Dennis gets involved with, but how much you get involved with that kind of testings basically on that production side and how rigorous that is. Very, very specific. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you, I thought about this morning, if there's like a number of check marks that go through that process of, quality control, if there's like it's like 500, check marks that have to get checked all the way through the process. But I thought that was an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
With that, Brad, going over to tell us, a little bit, where you are, kind of what you do, and how do you service those customers on the frequently kind of thing and the orders that are coming in, and then how soon to an order shipping can an order be changed? Talk a little bit about that as well, because I know that that's always one of those big things where somebody forgets something, they know their order's going out. But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm Brad Summerall. I'm the plant manager in Lithonia, Georgia. And when the customer changes an order, typically we obviously try to service them as much as we can without any further delays or anything. Sometimes, maybe ship a day later than was expected or something like that. But for the most part, we do whatever we can for the customer to get their order fulfilled in a timely manner, even with a change. And as far as how soon an order can be changed prior to shipping, typically we'd like to say 24 hours is the cutoff, but we make exceptions, and we do what we can for everybody, and just do the best we can and try to get stuff out, in the most efficient, timely manner.
Absolutely. Talking about finishes and getting things out. So Jeff, I know that one of the things on the West Coast that's different, especially for me as an East Coast guy, is the products, and sometimes it's one of those things where even from distributor to distributor, we find in a certain location, if you get one thing from one distributor and you needed something, you get it from another, there may be a difference. I wanted to talk a little bit about the finished products from different facilities and why they might be different. when it comes to, a lot of times I think applicators, especially, how come you guys can't make all this stuff the same? But we know that it's not, but why might that be different? Talk a little bit about that.
Probably the main reason for us to, we can't do the same is the sands come from different locations and the colors of the sands. Some sands come in, they're a little brown. I know, Ryan has a bunch of white sands, really white sand coming to his location. And so it will change the color of the product, plus as you were saying, for distributors, different color machines are going to change the pigments coming out at different strengths or different. So that will always be a difference too. But mostly it's the sands, obviously we're better than any of the other locations, but
I was waiting for that first dig from somebody, right?
they just have to deal with our greatness. So.
That's right. That's right. Well, talk a bit about freezing. Now, I mean, I know, again, up here from the Northeast coming out of Georgia, we deal with the freezing factor of material on trucks and doing it. We have to be careful of that. So Brad deals with it a little bit, but I'm sure you have a lot more on a consistent basis dealing with it, especially during the winter times because of where the location is. So how is it that we really maintain and protect the material from freezing?
Yeah, for full truckloads, you have to have a reefer van, to get full truckloads out of here in the wintertime. A lot of our southern customers try and get them on a flatbed, try and get them out of here as quick as they can. But we've had trucks break down, over a mountain pass or something like that, where they're just not going to survive, We do sell quite a bit down south. And so, in the wintertime up north kind of shuts down. So Brad may have as much going out north as we do, but in the single pallets, we try and work with trucking companies that will blanket them. We try not to ship on a Friday, so it won't sit in somebody's warehouse to go over the weekend, but that's what we try to do to keep it from freezing.
Interesting. So Ryan, you are down in Texas. Tell us a little bit about kind of where Masterwell has been growing, what we've been doing to invest on the manufacturing side, specifically where you're at.
Well, yeah, I said Ryan Whiting from Texas here. Masterwell has 3 plants. Obviously, one in Georgia where Brad's at, the one in Utah where Jeff is at, and myself in Texas. Masterwell's made a lot of investments at each plant. One neat thing about EIFS/acrylic coatings that we manufacture is the colors are almost limitless. So at Brad's location, Masterwell just doubled the size of their color lab to help out with all their color requests we get. As Jeff said, right now they're flying high, which is good. In the last year or two, they've added a new mixer and about 15,000 feet of warehouse space and office. That lets them get more raw materials in, have more finished product to ship on a timely basis. Here in Texas, we actually just about a year ago moved to a new facility. We had an opportunity to upgrade. It allows us for better raw materials, better finished goods, just a better flow. And then the last piece of the puzzle here is we're actually getting a new mixer late December, early January, which will allow us to increase production for our anticipated growth here.
That's pretty awesome. Grant, you do a lot, obviously as national sales manager and handling us as a team, which I know is a chore in itself, but you also bounce back and forth.
I'm a counselor and a psychologist.
Exactly. You bounce back and forth between all of these different pieces. Is there something that you would say, as far as what you would want to ask them from your perspective of what's kind of important?
Yeah, well, I just typed a note in the chat. Greg kind of put you on the spot, but maybe talk about the different number of SKUs at the plants. I know we don't, obviously Lithonia is running over with, the items and inventory, but kind of how you manage that process and how we manage inventory to try to be as efficient as possible on that side. And you're welcome for all the new products we constantly dream up.
Yeah, I'm going to say there's somewhere north of 400 SKUs out of the Georgia plant of the things that we make. That doesn't include the things that we sell from others, but typically what we try to do is take a look and say, how much do we sell of each product in a given month? and then basically allocate our space in the warehouse based on what are the things that sell most. We do have fairly limited space, but our goal typically is that if somebody places an order for a truckload of material, if we don't have it in stock to ship immediately, we'll be able to make it within a day or two and ship it out within 2 to 3 days. And that's generally the way things work, unless it's a color or some other specialty type product.
All right.
Interesting. I was just gonna ask in general, like what, and this could be a really hard question, but what is one of the harder parts of the production from what you see? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of hard parts, and it may not be necessarily, it's really hard to do it, but it's more complicated, or a piece of the production piece, or again, as you see it, it may not be even making the material itself. It might be bouncing back and forth of what we are asking for, and you guys are like, oh, here we go again, right? I mean, it could be that kind of a thing, but generally speaking, is there a hard part of it? What's one of those harder things that you guys see?
I'll chime in. I think one of the hardest parts here for us is the scheduling, how to schedule the products with, as Greg said, having so many different SKUs. It's scheduling those products in, where you can be the most efficient, throughout the day and get the most out of everything, and not allow for too much downtime and too much changeover time between products and things like that.
For me, besides working with the employees, the hardest part would be like trying to guess ahead of time what somebody's going to want, to make sure we have the raw materials in stock for that. You never know what's going to come through. And so trying to plan everything.
I would say, as you're scheduling stuff, just as Brad and Jeff talked about, we try to do the best we can, but a lot of these raw materials we're relying on companies to send us, and they're not doing the best of job these days either of keeping stuff around. And so you're trying to play a guessing game on exactly when you need to get something and things like that.
I got a question from the sales perspective, and Jeff and Ryan, obviously you guys interface with the sales and manufacturing. And Brad, you've worked in kind of the distribution service model a long time ago. Maybe if there's one thing or two things you would want sales people to understand about production manufacturing and how sales can better help maybe the manufacturing process, just any advice you have there.
It's sometimes we feel like, if people are calling in and saying, hey, there's something wrong with the material, we feel like it's on us, you know what I mean? Yeah. We wouldn't ship a material out if it was bad, we just wouldn't do it. If it's bad, we're not going to send it out. And so our first instinct, at least for me, is to say it wasn't our fault. They did something wrong there, kind of thing. And, occasionally we do find where we're at fault, but it isn't the exact science. I mean, not every pound of sand is going to get into that mixer. Not every part of the powders of that bag is going to get into that mixer, and so just for them to know that occasionally there could be a little variance in something.
And the rest of you?
I'd echo the same thoughts. Whenever something happens like that, the first reaction is, oh God, what's happening? You start tracing everything back. But we have a number of things in place to begin with before that pail will actually ever leave the warehouse. There's QC checks on it while we're making it, after we're making it. And so, when something like happens, you just go back and you start reacting, but you've got your notes, you've got all your verification. Hey, we did this, and then you go back and start checking stuff. But there is a process. It's not exact science, as Jeff said, but there's a lot that goes into it before that pail ever gets sent out. And maybe every salesperson ought to work a week, to plant. I don't know.
I don't know if you could handle us being there.
might have taken some additional insurance out or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Well, that's a good segue because I was going to ask Greg about with especially right now with COVID and everything going on, maybe the safety procedures, health and safety, maybe the investments we've made there, and how you see that evolving over time as we move forward, and how you manage the safety process.
Well, we over the last few years, we've called in safety representatives from the various state governments, Georgia, Utah, and Texas, to come in and do audits of our plants, to tell us, what are the things that we need to improve, and whatever they come up with, we've invested the money to make the improvements necessary. The COVID thing has been sort of interesting. We've been very blessed, really, that among all 3 locations, we've so far had 1 employee who's tested positive, and he was out for a couple of weeks, and is back at work again and didn't have any serious problems. But we started off, we were doing the temperature checks every day, and people wearing masks and all that. And since then, of course, the CDC has come back and say the temperature checks are not really effective. They don't recommend them anymore. So we're not doing a lot there, and except we do encourage people to wash their hands, to stay socially distant. And our process is such that people are working in different areas most of the day anyway, so there's not a lot of real close time together. But we've been, like I say, very fortunate, I think, to have not been impacted in a great way by COVID.
Brad, one of the things Leo mentioned there is how long does it take to clean and change different products in production? And I'm sure there's a vast change of product in production, generally speaking, but I mean, because of all the different products we have, and some are made in some certain ways and others in other ways, but generally, what is that turnover time to clean, change out, and go on to another product?
Well, I'd say worst case scenario, if you're going from one product to a totally different product, you're going to have an hour or so that you're going to have to wash out the machine, maybe 45 minutes. You're going to have to wash out the machine and get everything re-greased and ready to go in the machine and everything before you can start the next batch. Now, if you're going in a progression of, smallest sands to the largest sands, you can go back to back to back without any change over time. But I'd say 45 minutes is the biggest change over time on going from one product to a totally different product.
And I think you guys all, and anybody can answer this, would cringe at this question or this comment, which is, why does it take so long? It's just sand in a bucket. And that's, on the applicator side, that's what we hear, right? From the salesperson, they'll say, why does it take so long to get this product? It's just sand in a bucket. But what would your reaction be to that comment?
Well, the first comment would be to laugh, as you said.
But Ryan, they've been doing this for 25 years.
Well, yeah, of course they have. You've got products that take different resins. You have products that might have fiber in it, some don't. You do have to be careful. We have products that take mica chips in it. Ceramic beads, and you can't have these things, quote unquote, cross-contaminating finished batches. And so you do have to stop and wash out. In a perfect world, as Brad said, you would go, you'd stay on one finish all day long. Next day you but unfortunately or fortunately, we get calls from salesmen saying, hey, my customer really needs this. And so you make do and make all the changes you can. And we all try to do that to make sure the customer gets taken care of, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. But there is time that you do have to, if you run something with fiber in it, you've got to make sure that mixture is clean before you come back and make a finish on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With everything going on in the world right now, what do you guys kind of see? I know logistics is always a challenge, especially certain times of year. Maybe on that side, what's the biggest challenge? What's the best resolution you've seen regarding logistics, or any other challenges you see in the market right now?
The logistics is tough, and it's not, some of the biggest opportunities we've seen, and I don't know if Brad and Jeff will have seen the same, but if you go LTL and you pick product up, when it goes to that LTL terminal, That seems to be when all, HELL breaks out nowadays. I don't know who they hired. I don't know what's going on, but that seems to be a big opportunity where things going back out sometimes get disheveled, would be the best way to put it.
Yeah,
I think.
go
Sorry,
ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. You're good.
I think LTL is the worst for, all our plants. We had a Denver LTL location that shut down because of COVID, and so that really put a kink in things. And, it seems like once they get it on a truck, it's never the same when it gets where it's going. So.
Yeah, I'll echo a little bit of what Ryan and Jeff both said. And the LTL thing, just say for instance, if we're shipping from Atlanta to Boston or something, or Atlanta to Kansas City, you've got anywhere from, I guess, 3 to 4 different terminals that pallet or few pallets is going to be stopping at. And, because you're going to stop at the local terminal for both places for the shipping point and the shipping destination. And you're also going to stop in, at least one terminal in between on some of those longer hauls. And I don't know about you guys, I'm sure y'all have been in these LTL terminals before, and these forklift drivers in these terminals, they don't care. I mean, they're either wide open or they're slamming on the brakes, as Greg said last week, and stuff's going. I mean, it's hard for a pallet to survive an LTL terminal, and when you have multiple terminals, it's it becomes a bigger issue.
Mm.
Kind of related to that, on the vendor side, I'm hoping things have kind of resolved and leveled out, but have you seen any issues actually getting supplies and getting raw materials with some of the shutdowns that have happened? I know that's a question we've had from several customers. How are lead times for raw materials? Just anything you've seen.
There's been a lot of consolidation on the vendor side for some of our raw materials and chemicals that we have. And they've gone to these super regional centers where they house everything and then they will farm it out, to the local place. That transaction going from, let's say, someone's got a hub in St. Louis and goes to Houston doesn't seem to happen as often as it used to, I guess I would say. And that's been challenging, I've noticed on this side.
Another thing is when the virus first came out, we sat down immediately and kind of took a look at the lead times on our various raw materials and basically increased our inventories on lots of items just to avoid any potential disruptions.
Which is always interesting, Greg. I appreciate how you say that, because the inventory that we carry, right, that you guys have there is no different than what we're asking, let's say, my customers to carry the actual product to the applicator inventory. When people want to say, oh, I don't have room for inventory, I don't have this and that, and and then they want something from us. I mean, it's the same thing on our side. We have to inventory product, that raw product, to make that product for them. And it takes a lot of space to have that raw product in our facilities. And keep that inventory up, and then rely on those vendors, like Grant was saying, to keep up with what we need when we need it in order to make it. And so it's in some ways a trickle down effect when it's stopped at the vendor side, even when we can't get material, which I know sometimes happens every once in a while.
Back to the logistics thing, another thing I've noticed, it's increased some since COVID started and all, and it's not something that goes on all the time, but the majority of the truckloads we send out of here are customer routed, and these trucks, they'll say, hey, my truck is coming in on this day or this day or this day, and the truck won't show up, and it'll be 2 or 3 days later. And talking about the space, the room to store all this stuff, you end up with, you'll have 4 or 5 truckloads sitting on the floor at sometimes the same time, just waiting for these trucks to show up, and nothing really we can do about it, and nothing the customer can do about it. It's these trucking companies just dropping off a load or saying, oh no, we can't get it, or something like that. And I've noticed an increase in that since COVID started.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Mike. Well, since you kind of oversee this whole department, with Greg's insight and professional input there. Maybe some thoughts, direction you've seen, or just kind of words of encouragement for this group.
Well, I would say, first of all, this group does a phenomenal job. They are self-motivators. They care about the product being right, and they care about the customers. So many of our customers have had opportunities to talk to Jeff, Ryan, and Brad, and Greg, and receive that outstanding service that they give, because they really do care. And I appreciate the work that they do. Secondly, we're always striving to improve. Ryan mentioned and talked about the investments that we're making. Well, we continue to make investments and improvements in our manufacturing processes. That's just who we are. We're building a culture of excellence. It's never finished. It's an ongoing process. And these guys do an outstanding job of doing that, and just working hard every day. Appreciate them much.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. And just to reiterate what Mike said, whenever I'm out seeing customers, without me probing and asking, so many times they say, hey, Greg, Brad, Ryan, Jeff, they do an awesome job taking care of us. And they always go above and beyond to try to help us out any way they can. And that is constant feedback we get. And I think that's just, again, part of the culture that's established here, that we want to service customers well. So encouragement to you guys. You don't get told thank you enough, and you don't get told the positives of the great things that our customers say about you. So with that, Brian, I don't know if you want to ask any closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I just thank everybody again. And if there's anybody who hears this and listens and sees, I mean, come down and visit any one of the plants. We've got some people coming in from one of our distributors this week to kind of visit and check things out and see things. And we'd be love to show you guys around, just because I think it gives a perspective to everybody in the process from start to finish on the wall, of what goes into Masterwall. And like Mike said, building a culture of excellence from start to finish. And you guys are the start of a lot of that, for the production side, for sure. And so let everybody know, I appreciate it. We're going to be, for those again who are listening, we're going to be taking some time off for the rest of the year. So everybody have a great holidays and Christmas and New Year's and all those fun things for what you're doing. And just be sure to look for any promotional information on the next show that would probably come up in 2021. So appreciate everything that we've done so far. And guys, thank you for this time.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brian and Grant.